Hello, thanks for checking out my video. My name is Kelly from Connect Career Consulting. If you like what you see, make sure you hit those like buttons and subscribe down below. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about transferring to a college in the state of California. This is probably one of the biggest questions I get from students, so I'm going to make a video for all of you. So I hope this helps you out, especially right now because it's being recorded when most schools are in remote operations, so it can be a little bit of a tricky subject. All right, let's get into the video. So like I said, transferring is probably the #1 question I get asked about by students. So I'm going to go over how does it work, what does it look like, what does it mean, all that good stuff. So in California, we have 2 university systems. We have the University of California system. These are going to be schools like your UCLA, your UC Berkeley, UC Riverside, UC San Diego, etc. There's a couple more. And then we also have our state university system, our Cal State. It's often called the California State University System, where we have 23 institutions that are a part of that. So we actually have 2 systems in terms of state institutions in California. And what that means is they're funded by the federal government, but also by the state government. So at colleges, we get funding typically from both entities. We also, of course, have a whole host of private and trade schools. And I'll do another video to talk a little bit more about private and trade schools. Today, I'm specifically going to be referring to those Cal States I mentioned. So first thing to keep in mind, if you did decide to go to community college prior to going to a university, you're typically going to spend 2 to 3 years at community college. Now, it used to be back in 2000, you could do 2 years and transfer to a university, and that was because universities were not as impacted. They had more room for students, and it was easy to transfer without having 60 total semester units. So many schools back then would accept you with 48 semester units as long as you had like your English and your math and your communications done. That is not the case anymore. And that is actually my most common misconception, is that I can transfer with less than 60 units. Now, are there exceptions to this rule? Yes. But they are very, very far and few between. And so you definitely want to check with your academic counselor at your community college. Just some examples of some rare ones I've seen. Humboldt State University will occasionally accept students without all of their major preparation done as a lower division transfer for certain majors. I've seen UC Davis do this as well for non-impacted majors, where they would take students as long as they had a certain number of courses completed. So are there exceptions to the rule? Yes. Are they there for the most popular majors? Absolutely not. Psych major, you got to do everything. Business, communications, anything that's one of the more popular majors, you can expect to need to complete all of your preparatory coursework at community college. And now, what is all this preparatory coursework? You hear people talk about their generals or their GE, and what does this mean? And I'm just going to community college to get my generals. And that's how it used to be. Now, universities don't only want you to do the general curriculum or your general education, but they also want you to do what's called major preparation. So there's actually 2 things you need to transfer to a university now. You need your general education that's specific to that university. For our UC schools, we have the IGETC. For our state schools, we just have the CSU GE Breath. So there are 2 different GE patterns you can follow. And this is where it's important to talk to your academic counselor. They'll let you know which one's best for you. So 2 different options. So that's the first choice. And then depending on the major that you have selected to pursue, you're going to have a series of major preparation as well. So it's always important to know what your goal is in terms of transfer and major. What school? Because each school will have a different set of major preparation. So just having one school in mind, we can prepare you for that school. But then if you decide to prepare for another school, we might not have you set to take all of the classes you need for that school. So each school will have a different series of major preparation. So it's always good to have at least 3 schools that you want to apply to, and you want to do some research on which school is best for your major. I'll do a video on how to research schools and majors, but just kind of for the gist of it right now, a good Google search like best school in California for psychology, and there's several. So that's a nice way that you can kind of determine which schools you want to look at. Many students will look at their local state university because it's there, it's been prominent in front of them, but it's not always the best school for your major. So I do always encourage you to check that out, because remember, you're going to university to eventually get a job. So you do want to make sure that the school you select is going to help you get that, not just simply choose it because it's close or convenient. Is never my recommendation. So back to transfer, you need the GE and you need the major prep. And these are going to be specific to the major again, not just the major prep, the GE as well. If you're a liberal arts major transferring to a university to be an elementary school teacher, you are going to have a very different set of general education than my student transferring for biology. So there is no general big list of classes you can take for generals. Doing just your generals for 2 years at community college, and then you decide to see a counselor your second year, you're going to realize that there's a lot of other stuff you need. So it's really important your first year at community college, your first semester, get in to see a counselor. Very, very important, because they're going to have that insider knowledge on what major prep do I need? How do I get to these colleges that I'm interested in? But they're going to ask you, do you know what major you're interested in? And they're going to ask you about the schools. So it's really good to do a little bit of research on that beforehand. And of course, if you are not decided, pretty much every community college has a career counselor to help you out with that too. So make sure you take advantage of those free services at community college. So that is how you transfer. That is how the process works in terms of the curriculum that you need. You will apply typically 1 year before you would want to attend. Most schools in California only accept students once a year. Of course, this was pre-COVID. I don't know how it's going to look post-COVID. Some schools will open for spring or winter session. It just varies. We really don't know. There's no consistency like every semester the school opens for spring. There's no consistency. So you can always check too on the school's website, see if they're going to be opening for spring admissions, but you can guarantee that all schools will be open for fall admissions. Now, when you apply to transfer, you do not need to have everything done, but you do need to have everything done before you start at that school. And typically it's the summer before you start. So let's say you're applying for fall 2021. Those applications actually close, I think was it yesterday, the 15th. So they actually close on the 15th. So you actually have until they close to apply for fall 2021. That's almost a year in advance. And that would mean that if you're admitted, you would start in August, September of 2021. But that would mean that all of your GE, all of your major prep would have to be completed by the end of the spring semester, which would be around May 2021. You could not use that summer to complete classes most of the time. There's always exceptions. But for the bulk of state schools in California, the overwhelming 90% of those state schools will not let you go into summer to finish up your GE. And I can tell you with 100% certainty, none of them will let you go into summer and do what's called your Golden 4. So the Golden 4 on the GE pattern, this is specific to the state schools, are going to be your communications, your 2 English courses, your English, and then your critical thinking class and your math class. So that's a no-go. So for state schools, you've got to have the Golden 4 done if you want that to be admitted. If they even will let you in early, they still want the Golden 4. Now, another key component of transfer is FAFSA. This is the other big question I get. They say, well, I don't know what school I'm going to. How do I know what to put on my FAFSA? And the answer is you put them all. So you put every school you have applied to. That way, if you're admitted, that school has quick access to your financial aid package so they can put something together. If you have to add them after you're admitted, it depends on the school, but it could take as much as 4 weeks for them to give you a financial aid package. If you go ahead and put that school on ahead of time when you do your FAFSA, then you won't have to worry. They have your aid package. It might take them 2 weeks to put that together for you once you've been admitted. Schools in California will not give you an aid package until you have been admitted, because those are resources for their staff to go ahead and run those reports to pull up your aid for you. So you gotta gamble, but once you're admitted and you accept that offer, they will give you that information. I'll do a video on financial aid as well to explain kind of how that process works. That's not going to be part of this. That's a whole video in itself. Today, we're just talking about transfer. And then the other big question I do get from transfer is dorms and housing. So yes, some state schools do offer housing for transfer students. UCs, actually, there's more of them that offer dormitory options for transfer students. State schools, there's less options, but most will have some type of dorm option. Dorms are usually more expensive than living on your own, except for San Francisco State. But for most areas, it's cheaper if you know someone or if you can find another student to rent an apartment with. The dorms do make it easy though, because you don't have to think. You have your food, you know where you're living, you may not even need a car. Most dorms are located centrally on the campus. To be honest, it costs more, but it's way less stressful. If you can afford the dorms, I would definitely consider it. Off campus, again, cheaper, a little more stressful. Trying to deal with parking on most college campuses is not usually easy. And I would say that this is pretty much standard at every college campus I've visited, and I've visited almost all of the 23 campuses in my time as a counselor. And so I'd say it's pretty consistent, that parking stuff at most colleges. So that is the benefit of the dorms. You do get that instant and quick access to your classes, walk to classes. It just has to be right for you. Some students don't like dorms or they can't afford them, and that's okay. Also, it's important to look at subsidized housing. There are usually a lot of apartment complexes around universities that provide subsidized housing specifically for students, where they're going to have a lower cost option for you. So definitely take a look in the area at some of those lower cost apartment options for you. And many of them include lots of cool stuff like gyms and activity rooms and lots of fun things like that. So I encourage you all to do your research on which school is going to be the best for your career goals. Talk to your local college counselor. This is just a quickie info video. This is not designed to replace meeting with a counselor, because again, depending on your major and depending on what you want to do, what I would tell you as a counselor is going to be completely different. So make sure you definitely reach out to your local counselor to get help. Now, there is one exception, because if transferring in California couldn't get more confusing, and that would be our associate's degrees for transfer. In California, we have a program called Associate Degree for Transfer Program, and these are certain degrees. They're not all majors. There's a handful of them that have been approved by the state that you can complete that specific general education and major prep. You get an associate's degree, and then you get guaranteed admission into keyword a state university. Not necessarily your top choice, just a state university. You typically will get priority admission to your local state school. So pretty much what this degree does is it does guarantee you admission into a state university, pending you have at least a 2.0 GPA, which would be a C average. You'll be admitted into one of the 23 universities. What this program does not guarantee, it does not guarantee you'll be admitted into your major. It does not guarantee you'll be admitted to a school anywhere near you. It could be 200, 300, 400 miles other part of the state. But if you are someone who's flexible and adventurous and you're like, I'm going to apply and wherever I get in, I'll go, then this is a great option for you. It's also great for, I think, all students to have this option. It's easy because you know if you're a psych major, I do this plan, I have all these schools I can apply to, and it makes it a lot less stressful for you, honestly. And you know you're going to get into some school. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you apply to 5 state universities, the guarantee is to the 5 you applied to. It doesn't work like that either. It just means that even if you apply to 5, 6, 7 state universities, if they don't have room for you, other random state university will come and they'll grab you and take you. So it's totally optional if they do give you this option to accept another school that maybe you didn't apply to. You don't have to take it. You can turn it down. You can decide it's not for you. That's totally cool. But that's how that works. So that is the kind of transfer exception. If you do have a major that qualifies for one of these at the state level, I do recommend them. I think they're wonderful, in fact, and I hope that we have more consistency like that for students because it's easy. The other cool thing about those is they guarantee that once you're at your university, it's 60 units and you're done. Now that might sound a little strange because you think, well, isn't it just 60 units anywho? It is not. Depends on the major. Depends on the school. Some schools you might go do psychology and it might be like 70 units. Other schools might be the 60. So this will guarantee the 60 units when you get there. Do all state schools accept the ADT? Yes and no. Gosh, you gotta love counseling in California. It's a little, depends. It depends, right? So the school can choose to accept it or not. But if they do, it will typically be listed under a directory that we have access to as counselors. So don't worry, we check it for you. We make sure the school will accept that ADT. Now, do most schools take them for the majors? Yes, but not all. And not all yet, because the process to get approved to accept these is not easy. It is a lot of work from faculty, from staff, to write the proposals, to send these to the chancellor's office, to get them approved. It is a process. Not to mention that if you've been teaching your bachelor's degree program, let's say in social work, and it's 70 units, and you've done those 70 units for 20 odd years and you know it works, you would have to cut out 10 units to be eligible for the ADT. So that is just not a cut that some programs are willing to take, and it's based on their expertise in the field. So some programs, they find ways to make it work, and they like it, and they think it works and is beneficial to students, and others do not. So it really varies a lot, but ADTs, I think as a whole, wonderful, wonderful options for students. So that is my how to transfer video. Now you have a little bit of insight into how it works, what you need to do, and how you can go about transfer. Thanks for watching my video. If you like what you see, I'll have more content like this. Go ahead and click like and subscribe down below, and I hope to see you again.